And thank you everybody for joining us for our second workshop. We're Women in Product. Yesterday, we went over the 4 mindsets women of color need to overcome to negotiate anything. So if you joined us yesterday, please let us know in the chat if you did, what you learned. That's going to come in handy here because a lot of things that stop us from setting boundaries, especially as women of color in white-centered workspaces like tech and a lot of workspaces in general in different industries, really have a lot to do with mindset and the 4 inner haters that we showed folks to overcome. So if you didn't join that, check it out in the replays that are going to be available for all the workshops. But let's get started on boundaries for women of color in tech. So community agreements before we get started are hold space for the learnings of women of color. This is designed by and for women of color in tech. And if you're an ally, welcome. I know you can benefit and learn from this too. And positive intent always, but recognize that we all have impact here. So go off in the chat, but don't be mean to yourself, to others, to our team in Real You Leadership. We want you to stay curious and open to create space for multiple truths, such as boundaries are really scary and really hard for me to do. And I know I desperately or truly want them in my career and life to advance, right? And Vegas rules, take the lesson, not the story. And if you have any Q&A, usually we ask them to send anonymous to questions to Claire through Zoom, but you can use the Q&A tab or put it in the chat and Claire will pick it up for our Q&A later. And let's see here. So the suggested mindsets that we have for you here are curiosity over judgment and progress over perfection. So what that means is we want you to be curious about what's possible when you start setting boundaries and all the badass things that come from it versus judgment on why haven't I set boundaries for so long? Why am I so scared to do it? What stops me? Why is this so complicated? And then we want you to value progress over perfection, meaning that there's no one perfect freaking way to set boundaries here. There are so many things that we can do to just do incremental changes as we set boundaries. And we want you to also have a beginner's mind and expert's practice in this and be open to career building being fun. So I'm Nadia. I'm the founder of Real You Leadership. I'm an ex-techie turned leadership and negotiation coach for BIPOC women and femmes. And if you didn't join us yesterday, just going through our intro of I'm a closer of pay gaps, shatterer of glass, bamboo, concrete ceilings, and lover of all women of color leading the room. And other things to know about me is I'm a facilitator and speaker, and we do corporate workshops for BIPOC leaders and women leaders in tech. And I'm a boundary setting queen, so we'll be teaching you some of the best tips and tricks today on how to become boundary setting royalty yourself. And we help our clients get up to 50% or even more bank in their total compensation. And I'm also the daughter of immigrants, so part of the Filipinx diaspora. I like to share intersectionality, and we teach leadership and negotiation and career building with an intersectional lens. And I'm a 4'11" shorty Panay. So I like to say that because body matters in business and how we show up. And I used to be talked down to, treated like an infant and a child all the time, and expected to not have boundaries in the workspace. And I also like to say I'm the mother of cats, or as my mom likes to say, those aren't grandkids. And between Claire and I, we have 4 cats. We're awesome cat ladies here. And Real You Leadership, we partner with our clients and support them to thrive as the real you. So for those who are just joining, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. Drop it in the chat where you're joining us from. And we're about to go over mindset, strategy, and how you can negotiate your boundaries. And to be a real you leader is to be the leader you know you can be, authentic and unapologetic in your career as you advance as leaders, and you take up space and you're not afraid to elevate your brand, and you go through every single journey in your career values aligned. You act from your vision and you self-advocate. So yesterday, would love to see, oh, hey, Chicago. So glad you're here. Who else is here? Where are you joining from? Let us know if you also joined yesterday, because 4 Mindsets was all about what to overcome to negotiate anything. And we're going to continue the self-advocacy negotiation train today and journey today by learning how to negotiate specifically boundaries. So negotiations isn't just about money, y'all, although that is a beautiful thing. We want you to get paid the value of your work and what market research tells you to get paid, and have equal pay for equal work. So we help our clients thrive in high demand, high impact companies and organizations just like yours. And this is Kalia, one of our previous clients of Real You Leadership. She's actually one of the moderators for the main stage, leading trivia today, I believe, and had her own talk today. So we work with product managers and other roles in tech and other professionals and leaders. And Kalia said that after working with Real You Leadership and coaching with us, her ability to lead has grown. She realized she didn't have to give everything to be a good leader. And part of being a good leader is honoring boundaries and helping others honor theirs by leading by example. And she realized by setting boundaries, what she really needed to thrive as a leader in tech was teams and environments that valued her and allowed her to be her authentic self. And that's why we call our program and our work Real You Leadership, right? We want you to be able to expand and be in any room as the real you. And Shantae is an expansive leader, just like all of our clients, who learn to show up authentically to help others feel comfortable and supported to do the same. We teach our clients to lead by example and to truly be the leaders that they have always wanted to have in their lives. So are you right now the leader that you yearn for, that you yearn to see, that you yearn to have leading you? What if you could act as yours today? And Shantae also shared in her testimonial that she didn't need to be perfect or conform in order to be accepted. And Jamie was able to get a $30,000 increase and lift as she went. She not only did that in nonprofit, she was able to receive the appropriate compensation and advocated for her colleagues to do the same, which is why we always love working with BIPOC women and femmes, because we know that we lift as we go, we pave the way and leave the road behind for others to follow. So right now, we're focused on Activate Voice. If you joined us yesterday, would love to know you were also an Activate Voice of the 3 pillars that we teach in our Real You Leadership Group Coaching Program. That is for BIPOC women and femmes. It's a 6-month program where we go over radical vision modules, as well as Activate Voice and expansive value. But Activate Voice is all about taking up space, daring to say this isn't good enough, daring to say no, daring to share your expertise and all your ideas and all your glory. And what we'll cover today is we're going to go over why it's so hard for women of color to set boundaries. We're going to go over the 5 types of work boundaries you should be looking out for and setting in order to have a fulfilled, expansive career and elevate as a leader. And we're also going to share a checklist to see, do you even need boundaries right now? And oftentimes you kind of do. And we're going to share the recipe for badass boundaries, script templates. So along the way, I'm not going to leave you hanging. We're actually going to share literal examples of what you can say for very specific scenarios I've been through, Claire's been through, most of our clients have been through, and we're going to have a Q&A afterwards too. So for those who are here, I'd love to know, what's coming up for you with the word no? No is a complete and full sentence. What is your relationship to no? How comfortable are you telling people no? And would love to see what's here today. And hello, Bay Area, Boston, so good to see you. But what's your relationship to giving no and boundaries? Quite comfortable. I love to hear that. Good. Awesome. Anyone else? Okay. Little quiet. So it depends on the situation. Absolutely. Depends on who. Depends who's asking. Okay. So now I'd like to know, how comfortable are you with receiving them? How comfortable are you with receiving no? And if you can share in the chat what's coming up for you, I really appreciate anyone who's sharing. I like to be transparent, but different wording for each person. Hard when it's saying no to someone I care about. I'm usually good, but recently I was getting off a project and found it hard to say no to the last few asks. Not comfortable. Thank you. I really appreciate all the transparency and honesty. So, wherever you are in your journey of setting boundaries, giving and receiving no, I like to say it's, two sides to the same coin. A lot of times when there's a bit of discomfort, we're also really scared of receiving no. So, just really get curious versus judgmental about what your relationship to no is in the first place and what you want to do to move forward. So I'm seeing not very comfortable. The knee jerk reaction is a bit sad, but immediately bounce back. That's great. So the practice of setting boundaries are a form of self love, self respect, and self care. If you are in yesterday's four mindsets for women of color that we need to overcome to negotiate anything, in the Q&A, it was a really popping Q&A. We went off and we were talking about how negotiations is a form of self-love. And I really do believe in negotiating as another form of advocacy for boundary setting. And it really is about, do you love yourself enough to set boundaries? Do you respect yourself enough to set boundaries? Do you care for yourself enough to set boundaries? Because it can be really hard. Some people are talking about the knee-jerk reaction in the comments. Some people are saying that it makes me feel a little uncertain or it gets really hard. But boundaries is really about telling people how they can interact with you, right? So why boundaries can be tough, especially for women and femmes of color, is that we prioritize the needs and feelings of others before yourself, right? Or we are coming from a place of our fears, like the four inner haters we went over in yesterday's workshop, like people pleasing, victimizing, imposter syndrome, toxic energy, right? We're coming from these places over our values, and we avoid retaliation, rejection, and hurting others by not speaking up and setting boundaries. You might also fear that you have no rights, you have no authority, you have no power, or are not in a place of positional power. We saw yesterday for the negotiation workshop, specifically, mainly around compensation, that a lot of people thought that they couldn't speak up because I'm not in a leadership position. So if any of that relates to you, we're going to be showing you how to slowly unlearn that and come through differently in your career and show up powerfully. And you might even be responding to social contracts and systemic oppression that might be in place there. And simply, boundaries can be tough because no one ever taught you how. So we also get cookie cutter, bland, vanilla advice that doesn't dig deep into the microaggressions and gaslighting and biases we face in the workplace, that doesn't honor our roots, our ancestors, and the intersectional lived experiences of BIPOC women, that doesn't take into account the real you and how you navigate the workspace. For us, BIPOC women and femmes, honestly, we get our boundaries crossed all the time. Y'all are familiar with work twice as hard for half the recognition. That goes for half the pay as well, half the glory, half the respect. And we overwork as a result. We overextend and we overperform regardless of title and experience without additional compensation, recognition, or respect. So women face situations that push them to conform, right? Or assimilate to the male norm, but being at the intersectionality of race and gender and sex, BIPOC face the white-centered cultural and professional expectations that often clash with our upbringing and our values. And nuance matters here, right? Depending on your age, your class, your immigration status, your location, language, mental health, if you're part of a neurodiverse community or not, that all takes into account how we show up in the workplace, the biases or aggressions we might face, right? Or how we actually dare to stand up to different people with different intersectionalities, right? So when women of color set boundaries, let me know if anyone can relate to these. For those who say they're a bit uncomfortable, they're not really great, they avoid them. When women of color set boundaries, we are scared of getting oftentimes someone saying, "You're so sensitive. Ugh, she's not a team player. You're so aggressive. Don't be too bold. you're a little loud, you're difficult to work with, you're too much. And we're scared of plainly simply being called the angry black slash brown slash Asian slash Latino woman, etc. So who can relate to this here? Hmm. Oh, I see some familiar faces from yesterday. Thank you for joining us. And I'm seeing folks saying no is tough balance when you're also constantly being told to take advantage of opportunities. Yeah. Try to remind myself that saying yes to all means saying no to something. That is so true. When we say no to something, we're creating space for things that actually matter or we want to prioritize in our careers and lives. Sensitive and difficult are definitely trigger words. Been accused of all those things, scared about not to be liked when I set boundaries. This is the reality, y'all. You're not alone. And what we want you to do is be empowered to move beyond those fears. And honestly, when you are so clear on who you are, your authentic, real self, coming from a place of values versus fears, we know that these words don't matter. We know that we define our value, we define who we are. And when we set boundaries, we know we're advocating for ourselves because no one else is going to do that for you but you. And we also face real external blocks. Honestly, it's not your fault that people are thinking this about us, right? There are real oppressive, binary, racist, and sexist systems we face that allow inequities and this type of bias and discrimination to continue that keeps us at a disadvantage, right? From a fair, we're not getting the pay that we deserve, we're not seeing us represented in leadership and management positions, and it keeps us in survival mode. So I asked this yesterday, how do we keep advocating for ourselves when we're in survival mode? It's one, checking for those inner haters that if you didn't catch the workshop yesterday, you could catch the recording later, but that stop us from showing up big and also moving beyond that survival mode. So boundaries are it. That's what we're going to be learning today. So setting boundaries, in my definition, is the process of finding, keeping, and nurturing your courage for one thing. Because let's be real, as natural as it sounds, I still have to, as natural as it is for me, I still have to really summon up a lot of courage depending on who I'm setting boundaries with, whether it's family members, community members, professional network, or even our partners and clients. And it also is about centering your wellness. So, boundaries are essential for healthy relationships, workplaces, and workload to really connect to your self esteem and confidence, and to create space for creativity and flow, and to have time for rest, joy, and passion, reach your full potential, and honestly create more space to tap into and connect with fulfillment in your career. So I want a hell yes for anybody in the chat who would like more boundaries and who would like to create space for all of these things on this slide here. Anybody ready for that in their careers? Awesome. And if you have any questions about this, we're going to have a Q&A at the end, and we would love to invite some people on stage. We didn't actually do that yesterday since we went so over time, but today we're going to have time to bring folks on stage for anyone who might actually want some coaching or thoughts around how to set boundaries in your current situation. So what we want you to do is not surrender to pressure. We want you to give yourself permission. Really honestly ask yourself, what would it take to give myself permission to unapologetically give and receive no, right? What would it take for you to set and unapologetically reset boundaries? Because undoubtedly, we will always have to reset boundaries. People like to test us. People like to cross the line we draw in the sand a lot. And also to keep self-advocating for you. So a lot of folks ask us, when do I have to set boundaries at work? We say at the very damn beginning, right? At the very beginning, when you start applying to jobs, when you speak to that recruiter for that first chat, right? When you interview, when you onboard on day 0, day 1, and moving forward, this is a daily act to set expectations, Set boundaries when you need to and reset them as you go. And if you are already in a situation in a current workplace that you have no intention of leaving, we have a lot of clients who have joined us and worked with us saying, I've been with my company for 7 years and I'm scared that it's too late to change. The executive team, the leaders, management, everybody knows me as this person who plays small, who doesn't advocate for herself. And we say, yo, it's never too late. It's never too late to create boundaries, start showing up for yourself and connecting with your confidence and broadcasting that as part of your growing brand of who you are at the core. So let's get into the 5 work boundaries here. We have time boundaries that we'll be going over with examples. We have material boundaries. We have physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, and intellectual boundaries. I'm going to be describing every single one with literal scripts that you could take. So don't worry about taking notes, although feel free to. Hopefully, this recording will be here for you as well. But time boundaries is the first one. It's pretty self explanatory, right? It's about, do you need to set boundaries around your actual time and bandwidth? So, when you are setting these boundaries, get super clear on your exact limit. Be clear on what your job description is in your career and your role. Be mindful of overcommitting and overwhelming. And honestly, I want you to know that you should understand that your time is so valuable, just as valuable as your leaders, your managers, your stakeholders. Again, I want you to take into account if there's fear of authority or positional power of who am I to push against my manager, right? Who am I to say that when we're all overworked here, we're all overgiving? Your time is valuable, treat it as such, and honor your values and your wellness. So voices to look out for, inner haters to look out for are the people pleaser, any perfectionism going on. If you're feeling like an imposter, like you don't deserve to have time boundaries, or if you're a hyperachiever, this is another one for really ambitious women of color leaders. Sometimes we just love to give because we love to achieve. And think about at what cost. Are you burnt out? Are you starting to slip a little bit? Are you doing way more for less compensation than your counterparts, right? Really look out for those things. Okay, I see a little emoji saying, oh, yes, that's me. So let's uncover and start learning how to set these. Time boundaries you could start setting today. And I'd love to challenge you to take one from each of these boundaries to implement in the next 30 days. Say no to weekend work. Say no to afternoon 5 p.m. emails and DMs. Hell, even delete your apps, right? Right at 5 p.m., delete your apps. Our team does that a lot on weekends, right? We are not looking at a lot of things. We're not looking at Slack. We're not looking at emails, etc. And say no to tasks outside of your job description, or ask for a pay adjustment if you're going to take those on. We discussed that in yesterday's workshop. And honor your PTO, vacation time, sick leave, and actually take it. I can't tell you how many clients and women of color we've worked with that have maxed out on their PTO, maxed out on their PTO. It doesn't roll over to the next year, and they're terrified of taking too much time off. Don't let that be you. And managing your workload, tasks and responsibilities, and office chores. So here are a couple examples. You might say, sure, I can lead this project. Let's look over my current priorities and deliverables and see what can be deprioritized for now or delegated to someone else so I can take this on. Second one, since we're not backfilling this role and I'm taking on more senior responsibilities, I'd like to discuss getting a pay adjustment. We actually just had one client who worked with us for a whole year in Real You Leadership who used this line when a senior lab associate left and they didn't backfill that position, and she took on almost all the responsibilities. And at first they said no, but after advocating for a month, they approved a 5% increase, and 3 months later, another 5% increase. So it's all about asking for a pay adjustment in those. And I hear you. Outside of description and managing workload is hard. And it's about setting boundaries and saying, hey, just so you know, This is inequitable. This is not in my job description. What's possible here? And second is material boundaries. So we can put it on food. I know we're not so much in the workplace, but I remember back in the day getting my lunch stolen every once in a while. Who took my sandwich? Who took my special drink in the fridge, right? And meeting rooms, the war for meeting rooms in the workspace for people who book things and overbook things or overstay in meeting rooms and conference rooms when you have to schedule them in. Office supplies, money, etc. So the same thing, how to set these, just understand what your limits are, what's not okay, what is okay for you, and continue to honor your values and wellness. And you want to look out for people pleasing, being hyper vigilant, like if you're a little too defensive, a controller and perfectionist that might be there. And you want to make sure you set these boundaries in a way that feels like you're claiming your power back, right? So some examples, I know that BIPOC women and femmes, a lot of our clients, including myself, are caretakers for elders in our community and family, mothers, caretakers for other extended family members even. And even those, y'all know when folks ask like, oh, my son's doing a See's Candy fundraiser or a Christmas fundraiser or Girl Scout cookies. And those add up depending on how many people are asking them in rotation. And I remember some of my BIPOC peers really being embarrassed that they weren't willing to even give $5 each time because they needed every dollar counted. So don't hesitate to set boundaries even on that. So one example is, I'm happy you're helping your son out with his fundraiser. I can't give anything at this time. Pause. That's it. No over explaining, no need to over talk. Or I can't give you the conference room. I booked it a week ago and this meeting is important too. Pause. So I hope these give examples of just how succinct and direct we can be when we set boundaries. The next one we'll go over today is physical boundaries. So look out for this. As BIPOC women and femmes re-enter the workspaces, a lot of the people we work with are scared. They're scared of being Black and brown bodies in white-centered workspaces again. So we really need to honor that and understand, where do we need to put physical boundaries, right? Personal space, privacy, touch, and physical body is what you should be looking out for. For example, are you not a hugger versus you prefer handshakes, being remote versus in office, right? We might have conditions that require us because of COVID. Hello, we're still in a pandemic where we can't do in-office work still, or we are not comfortable hugging right now with others who aren't in our bubble, in our circle. How you dress. We get policed more often based on our body type, right? Your hair and external appearance. Sharing your personal life or not. Some people don't want to share their personal life at work, and that counts as physical boundaries for how we teach it. And whether or not your Zoom video is on or off, because Zoom fatigue is very real, right? So clearly define your preferences, your comfort level, and your limits before you set boundaries for these. And notice, if you're not sure if a physical boundary is being crossed, honestly, this goes for every single of the 5 types we're teaching today. I like to say, if you feel it in your body, something disrupts, like, when I feel a physical boundary is crossed, I feel my whole chest tighten and my stomach drops, right? Really observe how your body is reacting so you know what you want to be setting, what type of boundary, and how you want to say it. And look out for the people pleaser, hypervigilant, and the controller. And I see someone saying, I'm getting a personal slap in the face that I know I need to set better boundaries right now. Just like yesterday's workshop, we might be dragging you a little bit, which is why we say curiosity over judgment is one of the mindset frameworks we want you to practice here. Of be curious, right? Don't judge yourself. Say, what do I want to do about this information, right? What do I want to do next? What's one boundary I can set by the end of this week to just do some incremental changes for myself, right? So examples. I'm more of a fist bump person or a handshaker, not a hugger right now. COVID, even pre-COVID. Let's just fist bump, right? No, I don't want you to touch me like that. Pause. My eyes are tired from too many Zoom calls. I need to turn my camera off for this meeting or we can make it a phone call. Claire and I decided to do that for a lot of ours because we get dry eyes so much. And sometimes we used to just add in extra Zoom calls like, oh, do you want to just quickly discuss that on Zoom? But we notice we just keep going like this a lot.
That's so real.
Very real. So we will say, do you want to just voice memo or do you want to make it a phone call?
Yeah.
Email, right? So emotional boundaries are next. Be in tune with your emotions and feelings. Respect and honor your feelings and energy. This one is really interesting because the emotional boundaries, the other four boundaries, if any of these are crossed, likely an emotional boundary is also crossed. So this one I want to highlight and expand on is a very big deal. And just to show that a lot of these might be overlapping and intersecting at the same time. So we want you to be clear on how much emotional labor you take on, right? As BIPOC women and femmes, especially when we experience conflict or microaggressions or bias in the workplace, it is our decision whether or not we want to take on extra emotional labor or not. So really look out for that because it tends to happen quite easily and naturally, especially when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion being volunteer work. ERG leaders, we have constantly focused on this for ERG leaders not being appropriately compensated for the extra labor they're doing, and it further divides inequities. So be clear on what labor you choose to not take or to take on. And notice when you feel guilt, shame, upset, and being undervalued. If you feel guilty for even setting boundaries, you're already doing extra emotional labor, right? If you feel shame for doing it, that's already extra emotional labor, plain and simple. And if you're feeling undervalued, you might be carrying some extra emotional weight that you can let go of if we do set these boundaries and expectations. And again, notice how your body experiences this and look out for the people pleaser, any hypervigilance, if we're victimizing ourselves or feeling like an imposter in these moments. And some examples. When you keep changing our one-on-one meetings, boss, or showing up late, I feel upset and undervalued. I'd like to understand how we can prioritize and be excited for our one-on-one meetings again, right? Do you see how that's advocating for us to have a better connection, collaborate, and work together? And we're also effectively showing that I'm upset, right? You get to do that. I know we said in previous slides we're scared of being called the angry black, brown, etc. woman, right? And we still get to be upset. We are humans. That's part of the full range of our human emotion set that we want you to be able to effectively express still, because it's true and we don't need to over explain it, but what we're sharing is the impact that people have on us. And I'll be showing some formulas that really get into how we can do this for ourselves for exact nuanced situations. But I had a VP of sales when I was still in tech sales at my last company who always canceled my one-on-one meetings, was late 3 months on my annual review because he was backed up, right? And I had to say this once in order to work together towards finding a better meeting and for us to actually utilize it properly. So another example is, hey, I love that we can confide in each other, but sometimes I'm not in a place where I can take it all in and be present with it. Could we check in with each other to see if we have space before we vent? Y'all, I get it. Workspace gossip, having camaraderie in the hustle when things are tough and things aren't as smooth or effective as we like. We love gossip, right? We love helping our friends who have challenges in the workspace that naturally comes, but sometimes it can be really toxic. Sometimes it can really take away from our ability to be present with the work. Sometimes it can really put us in a space of resentment or even further burnout. And we might need to be setting boundaries on these things too. And this is how we do it without hurting relationships. And another example, when you take my professional feedback personally instead of constructively, it makes me feel like I have to walk on eggshells with you. How can we best move beyond that initial reaction? So, dissecting this a little bit further, it's sharing this is what's wrong. This is what the impact is on me. And this is what I want to do to move forward. Let's work together. We teach in Real You Leadership in our coaching program something called the Equal Energy Exchange, as well as the Negotiation C-suite, like in desserts and candy, not C-suite like an executive team. And part of that is really inviting in curiosity and collaboration to move forward together. Another example is when you get angry like that, it feels like we don't trust that we have each other's best interest at heart. What's the best way we can move past that together? Pause and listen and practice that curiosity and receive. And intellectual boundaries is the final one. This is really important for product managers, right? You have intellectual property, you have a brilliance and expertise and ideas that belong to you, right? And sometimes as BIPOC women and femmes, we get our ideas disrespected, dismissed, or stolen, which is unhealthy way for our boundaries to be crossed. But we want these centered around your thoughts, your ideas, your curiosity. And a healthy way is to respect the ideas of others and have your ideas respected. So we want you to recognize harmful versus a difference of opinion. So harmful feedback, someone truly intending to put you down versus a simple difference in opinion, which is healthy in creative spaces like in roles like yours. So look out for the people pleaser, hyperachiever, perfectionist. And examples. I can respect that we have different opinions. That's it. Thank you for affirming the plan and ideas I shared earlier. I'd like to share more details and expand on my original thought. This is for when someone steals your ideas in the same meeting, especially, or even in a different meeting, right? Or it's normal that we don't agree on things, but I won't let you shoot down my ideas in a belittling way. I'd rather be more productive and constructive with our criticism to move forward towards effective dialogue and solutions together, right? So this is when somebody is literally putting you down, which unfortunately it happens, right? Tensions can be high, opinions can be really strong, energy can be really strong. And this is a way to name it and say, let's go a different route, right? We can't be treated this way. So recipe for badass boundaries. Going to share with you some boundaries before we get into the Q&A on how to do that. So recapping some of the things I shared throughout the 5 examples. 1, you want clarity on your non-negotiables and the values that you want to come from versus inner haters and fears. Number 2, recognize and understand your feelings around this and learn how to take out the charge. That might take a few days, right? That might take an hour. That might take a walk around the block. That might take some meditation. Whatever it is, you need to take a step back and then define what needs to change. And again, give yourself permission to set a boundary. Be clear, direct, and unapologetic. Don't overtalk. Don't over-explain. You have a right to say, I don't want to give more explanations, but this needs to change, right? And don't wait. Slow it down. By that, you don't need to set boundaries in the moment right away. I think a lot of our clients beat themselves up in the afterwards when they give us updates like, I wish I said this in the moment, but it didn't come because I was in my inner haters and my trauma responses and my fears, which is normal. It's okay. It's okay to go back to somebody an hour later, a day later, even a couple weeks later and say, I've given it some thought. I've calmed down for a minute and here's what I need. Right? But let's not let it wait too long, like 6 months later, a year later, bringing something that happened a year ago, a little too long. And then when you find yourself over talking or running a little too fast, don't hesitate to slow it down. Or don't hesitate when you might feel bombarded if someone has a strong reaction to your boundaries. And you might be like, oh, I don't have the answer to that. I didn't prepare for that. Say, hey, I'm going to slow it down. I need to think on that before I reply to you. That's okay too. And we want to focus on impact versus intent. A lot of times when you focus on setting boundaries, someone might say, oh, that wasn't my intention. So what you really want to focus on and say, hey, I understand you might have had good intentions, but here's the impact you had on me. And nobody can take away your truth about the impact that things have on you. That's your truth. That's your experience. And then we move forward. And you make space for challenges, pushbacks, and failures. When we help our clients with negotiation scripts, we help them build objection handling scripts. Like, if they say this, then I'm going to say that, because I'm scared that they're going to push back, rebuttal, challenge me. So prepare for that. Make space for that. That's okay. They get to have that right in this conversation as you move forward too. And celebrate yourself every single step of the way. I cannot stress this enough. As BIPOC women and femmes, we do not get celebrated enough in our workplaces, in society, even in our families and communities sometimes. So celebrate yourself regardless of how it goes, because you did it. You took up space. You went against the status quo. You went above and beyond your comfort zone, and that's worth celebrating. And when you might need boundaries, so we're going to share how you know a few checklists. You feel resentment or anger towards someone, you might need a boundary. When you feel anxiety around certain people, when you feel guilty for saying no, when you overtalk or overexplain, you're moody, irritable, or easily annoyed, or if you stay quiet or hide your ideas and thoughts, you might need some boundaries. If you're conforming or adjusting your personality, feel any overwhelm, burnout, or drained, you have a hard time knowing what you want amongst other people's thoughts, opinions, and what they're putting on you, or when your relationships deplete you versus fill you up, you might need some boundaries. So be open, honest, and clear with your team and stakeholders about your boundaries. You are only responsible for your actions, emotions, and responses, and you're not responsible for someone else, how they react or respond. We like to say for negotiations and compensation, stay out of people's pockets, like financial pockets, but for boundaries, stay out of people's emotional pockets. You're focusing on the impact something had on you and what you don't want to continue and how you can move forward together. And here's the deal. You get to say sorry. We don't want apologetic language when you set boundaries, like, sorry, I want to bring up this. No, you get to apologize if you mess something up, but don't people please or over explain in any way. Don't be sorry that you do need boundaries to be set. And when you set boundaries, remember, practice makes progress. So we value the progress over perfection. And again, the boundary was necessary, in my opinion, when you see negative reactions from others and they try to justify why it was okay to treat you the way they did or do what they did. And relapses, when people cross a boundary you already set, don't make that personal about you. It doesn't mean you failed or aren't good. Simply reset it. Remind people. Sometimes people do forget. And always practice curiosity over judgment. Take your time. Keep track of what works. Change what doesn't as you start advancing and setting more boundaries in your career. Stay flexible. Keep practicing and celebrate yourself always. So 2 templates before we share more about how to work with us and Q&A. If you, then I will. How to use that. If you want me to take on that project, then I will need to deprioritize another deliverable. What's it going to be, right? Number 2, if you keep telling me that my ideas aren't good without giving me guidance to improve, then I will need to reevaluate our working relationship together. So template number 2 you can start using is 1, I really fill in the blank, value, appreciate, prefer, plus insert the clear value and preference that you have here. So I need, want, ask that you insert action for the other person here, what you want them to do in order for insert the clear value and preference impact here to happen. So some examples. I really value having uninterrupted workflows during my day. So I ask that you start emailing me your last minute requests instead of walking up to my desk or pinging me at the end of the day, in order for me to focus on my priorities I have set for the day. So I have a challenge for folks here. Let's hear it. For the next week, collect as many no's as possible, whether that's from your barista, whether that's from your partner, whether that's from your parents, your kids, anyone at work. Start collecting no's, and that's giving and receiving them. So we want to normalize for you that you can handle the no. Negotiations start at no, and it's empowering for you to start embracing the no both ways, and keep a growth log of what worked well, what didn't work, and what will you do differently next time. So can I see it in the chat for anybody who is accepting this 1 week challenge? Yes, negotiations start at no. That's what we teach in Real You Leadership. That's not the worst case scenario. That's actually, we take rejection as a redirection and normalize that it's part of the process. So who will be collecting no's this week? Yes. And I know for folks who joined yesterday, we already set another challenge. We set 2 challenges yesterday, actually. So it's, yeah. So Claire's sharing, we had a client who collected a no jar, and she put in everything she said no to, or any no she received for her job search and her negotiations. She just put it in there to show, I'm doing the work. I'm not afraid of this. I'm embracing no. So knowledge is power. Awareness is the first step to distancing ourselves from the mindsets that stop us from self-advocating and showing up powerfully. What will you do with what you learned today? And we already have our freebie shared in the description below, but Claire can drop the links as well. Before we get into Q&A, I just want to share that consider bringing us to your company. Real You Leadership is open to share our interactive career and leadership development workshops just like this and the one we had yesterday. We'd love to potentially work with you again in your actual company. And for any BIPOC women and femmes who are interested in our 6-month group coaching program with other ambitious BIPOC women and femmes just like you, apply now at realuleadership.com. It's a 2-question application, and we're ready to help you break cycles that don't serve you and create new cycles that are values aligned, geared towards the vision that you have for your career. And you get all these things. We provide 3 group coaching live sessions that I lead in coaching. It's pure mindset coaching. It's so fun. It's so empowering. We get really deep. Claire leads 3 one-on-one sessions that you get. We do pre-recorded weekly connections, so you can send us updates weekly, and we do pre-recorded coaching to keep track on your progress, on all your challenges and goals. And we provide over 30 modules and leadership, negotiation, and self-advocacy content, such as this, and a private online community with worksheets, other examples, scripts, etc. So just a few receipts. Michelle, a UX researcher, was able to negotiate a 55% increase in her pay plus a 10K signing bonus. And she learned how negotiation and self-advocacy like this is so closely tied to your confidence and your upbringing and identity, which is why we center it around the BIPOC woman and femme experience. Andy, an amazing community and culture strategist, said self-advocacy, hearing other people's perspectives in our program, also a place to be vulnerable, was really important for them. And they love seeing melanated women where we can just be. We don't have to censor ourselves. We can just cry. It doesn't belittle or negate our badassery, and it adds more layers to it. And lastly, Natalie was able to get a 22% increase in pay, promotion, and set boundaries, and said, the money's great and all, but it wasn't the best thing that came out of this. They really love that over the first 6 months, they not only got to value themselves more, but also learn to enjoy their job more and build stronger relationships with their coworkers, which is simply what we need to thrive in our roles. Honestly, we are community made, not self-made. It's so important to learn how to thrive in the spaces that you occupy, whether you stay in your career, in your role, or move on to different spaces. And if you have questions, you can connect with me. You can connect with Claire. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. But Claire's our client success manager and our coach. So let's connect. Would love to see everybody in the future, online community, digital community, whatever it is. And let's go ahead and go into Q&A. Again, I really want to say thank you so much to everybody who joined us. I know that there are so many other beautiful workshops going on right now, and I'm so honored that you chose to spend it live with us. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to those who raised the link, who brought it to our attention that the link wasn't working right at the
Oh,
start.
for which one?
Our link for today linked to yesterday's.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so kudos to everyone for.
I wasn't even paying attention to the chat, so thank you for that.
Welly and I, we got you, and everyone else here. So thank you so much for helping you. Yes, so bottom of my heart, thank you so much for raising that, and then we got it fixed. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
We have.
I suppose anybody also wants to leave a review in that review tab.
Yes.
We'd love to see that. I didn't know that was there yesterday.
Yes, please leave us a review. This is our first time presenting here at Women in Product. We would love to come again. And let's get to Q&A. Thank you everyone for staying. And please keep adding your questions here in the Q&A. We will get to them. And this room does not end, so we're happy to stay longer and linger and answer all your questions. So here we have one that was anonymous, and I hope you're still here. Can you give examples of how to reset expectations versus setting expectations from the get-go?
Yeah, I was just telling Annette that you're amazing as the real you. And I believe you are powerful in the way that only you can be. So can you give examples of how to reset expectations versus setting expectations from the get-go? So if it is too late to do that, I like to just simply say it just like that, right? Like there's no complicated way or no complex way to say it, but hey, I'd like to reset expectations. It seems like we have different expectations that aren't aligning. So let's get realigned. What do you expect of this, let's say, project or my role? And here's what I think, right? And let's find the disconnect and build bridges and get aligned so we can move forward more effectively. That's one example. You can even say, I'd like to redesign our relationship, right? There seems to be some misunderstandings or difference in expectations. So what do we need to redesign in order for us to move more effectively on this project? Or what do we need to redesign in order, like, it could even be on feedback, right? Hey, it seems like we give feedback very differently and our communication styles are so different and they seem to build friction between us. What can we do differently? How do you prefer to set? This is something we teach in our managing up courses and modules, and trainings, but it really is about how do you communicate? How do you prefer to receive feedback? Here's how I prefer to communicate and receive feedback. Seems like we're a little misaligned, right? We're not fully aligned here. What do we want to do and agree upon moving forward so that we can avoid this friction? So I hope, Anonymous, this gives you any great examples for you to start implementing today. Again, it's never too late. It's okay. I know sometimes we can kick ourselves in the butt if we think like, oh, I wish I had done that. It's never too late. It's never too late to set boundaries.
Yeah, and also just normalizing so many of our boundaries that we set have to be reset many times. I don't even know if I have any boundaries that I haven't reset.
Yeah, so it doesn't make it about you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much for your question. Awesome. Someone asked here about working with us and getting coaching with us. So I dropped our coaching program, reallyouleadership.com, here at any BIPOC women and femme who is interested in working with us. We ask that you apply. It's a short 2-question application. Nadia and I review all of them personally. We had some yesterday that we were so excited to that applied and that we've reached out back to them. So we would love to see your application come through. Even if you're just 1% curious, we'll send you more information after you apply.
Mhm.
Thank you for that question. Okay. An anonymous. I think you touched on this, but what advice would you give to someone who receives snide comments after setting boundaries? Example, someone touches me without my permission, and I say, I don't appreciate that, but they start to make fun of me.
Yeah. So I would say, what do you mean about that? Depending on what the comment is, like, what do you mean? Pause, wait, receive. And this is an example of setting even more boundaries, right? They're not doing the initial boundary crossing of touching you inappropriately again, etc., but they are doing another thing and saying, hey, like really having a talk, sitting them down and saying, this is the impact you have on me. First, I set this boundary, and now this, what's going on, right? How do we start working together where you don't disrespect me physically and by making fun of me? And I'm really sorry that's happening to you, right? Like, I just want to say, holding space for you here. I know it's anonymous. And this is something that unfortunately we will receive some retaliation. But the point is that if you don't appreciate it, who's going to advocate for you? Right. So if you don't feel comfortable bringing this up yourself and you don't feel safe bringing this up yourself, that's another thing we need to take into account. Ask for help from another leader. If you need to, ask for help from even a peer level to be in the same room as you. I remember there was a VP in my last company who touched a mixed race Black man's hair. And when he confronted her, he asked for a peer to be a witness there to feel safer. And unfortunately, it did not go well. This VP ended up crying, feeling offended, and they had to actually get even more support. So it can go there. And that's where you have to really decide what emotional labor you're willing to do for these types of things, and setting boundaries. And when you need help, there is no shame when you can't set a boundary on your own. Do not feel ashamed of asking for help. The best leaders ask for help. So if they keep doing that, what are the repercussions, right? Say, what, and for anonymous, for you, have you said you don't appreciate that? Right? It's okay. I know it can feel so hard when it's one thing after the other. And this is where we discern, is this a difference of opinion or are you just bullying me? Right?
Gaslighting.
Are you gaslighting me? Are you bullying me? Are you being aggressive towards me? What do we need to do about this? Because this isn't okay if this continues. Right? I feel like I'm in a playground. Why do you keep saying those things? Pause. Right? And just see. And stay curious over judgment, right? This is where we say, be curious about the actual situation, right? Instead of saying you're being a jerk, you could say, what makes you say that to me? Right? Because then we get more answers and we continue the conversation. But what we want to say is, this is the impact you have on me. When you say those things, I feel like crap. I feel hurt. I feel like you don't think I'm a valid team leader, right? Etc. So what's coming up for you? I hope this is helpful. And, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Okay, moving on to the next one here. Can you talk about asking for a job title update and redesigning your reporting structure? Specifically, I'm at a quick growing startup and the titles, roles, leveling hasn't caught up quite yet, but will soon.
Yeah. So I see you didn't put this anonymous, Catherine, won't say last name, but if you'd like to hop on with us.
Yeah, come up on stage.
On the stage, how do we do that, Claire?
Yep. So, Catherine, if you're called to it, or feel free to let us know in the chat, then you just go up top here and ask. There you are.
Oh.
Awesome. I'm adding you.
Awesome. We're doing it. We're official moderators. Hey, Catherine, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you waiting for your question.
Thanks, I guess, for having me.
Yeah. So if you're open to it, I'd love to know a little bit more. You said you're at a quick growing startup. The titles, roles, leveling hasn't quite caught up quite yet, but will soon. So what have you already done? What do you know you haven't quite done yet in order to advocate for that?
Yeah. So I guess when I joined, I kind of joined in a particular role, and that quickly kind of grew into more of a ML or data product manager. And that's been great because I kind of came from the customer side, had a lot of empathy there for what data they're looking for, and have been really growing and exploring. And we kind of have discussed and aligned about kind of a product management role, but there's been no formal title change.
Okay.
And I know at the latter half of this year, the intention is to make sure I joined. We were under 30 people, and now we just hit 100 or over 100 in 10 months. And so, yeah, it's been quite intense. So, like I established my team, we've grown to 6 data scientists now, and it's been great. But, I kind of want everything to catch up and have these conversations before they set all the things for you.
Okay. When was the last time you had an update and talked about this with your stakeholders?
It was 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay. It's been quite a while. We want to check up even this week, right? So here's the thing. If you really want it to be set, if you want to have some sort of power and control in this, I would suggest you bring this up and start planning and being a part of this conversation. This is a negotiation, right? And this is also even setting boundaries, right? Setting expectations of here's what I want, here's what I don't want to happen, meaning I don't have control. Suddenly you set things, you level things without my opinion of what I want. Does that sound accurate towards like what you actually want from this?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Like you want to have that conversation before, they decide.
Yeah. So here's something I suggest. Don't let it wait another 3 months. Don't even let it wait another 3 days. I would definitely encourage you. And something we do in coaching is we don't tell you what to do. You get to choose. But something coming up for me is having that conversation, saying, what is the status of this? Getting that clarity and waiting and saying, make sure you have prepared what you actually want to see for yourself. Say, I have some ideas. This is the title I want, or something close to it. This is the leveling I want. This is the pay I'd like. These are the responsibilities and types of projects I want. And go pie in the sky, go big, and just say, in the best case scenario, this is what I'd like. And then I would also just simply say, you notice a lot of open-ended questions in the boundary setting scripts. I said a lot of what, how questions, like what's possible to get what I want. So what's coming up for you with that, Catherine?
Yeah, I definitely think that it is one of those things where, I'll have to be comfortable just saying exactly, explicitly, and not trying to over explain, and try to validate, I think, at least what you guys were saying about, you want to just keep talking.
Yeah. And by validating, put together, did you join yesterday's session?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So we have what we say, I think it's in the quick and dirty market research as well, like what we say, your bad B folder, your praise folder. Make sure you collect all the data of everything you've done in these past 10 months and why you will continue to bring value. And then don't leave the conversation without next steps. If you believe this is going to be settled by the end of the year, say, hey, I'd like to meet with you on a regular basis, stakeholder. How often should we meet? And what do you need from me to be successful in advocating for me? That's really important, right? So you're going to say, help me, help you, help me. That's your job in this, because your stakeholders are probably really busy. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like the, saying, hey, I want to keep checking in. I also, I think we've also experienced that whole kind of pushing off the one-on-ones and things getting delayed at this pace. And so I like the verbiage you guys had about.
So I'd like to ask you, what blocks might you have internally around advocating for yourself confidently for this this is very critical, actually. This is an exciting time. I've been in high growth startups, and it's a great time to get a pay increase and a promotion.
Yeah. I think, my main blockers have been about, just navigating what exactly they're trying to structure out in the first place. And, trying to find, between the context of what they're trying to build versus what you are trying to get in terms of parity and, the titles and the, our philosophy is a very flat org. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
Yeah. So it just sounds like there's not too much clarity on your end right now.
Yeah.
So this is something where we want you to just be wildly curious and clear. Like, hey, I know there's a lot of things unanswered, but I want it to be known this is what I want. Like, what's possible, because you'll never regret putting that out there. I see you went off mic. What's coming up for you?
Oh, no, I just have my window open. So
that's okay. I don't hear a thing. But yeah, so I'd like to just say, keep on it. Keep planning for it. You don't know all the answers yet of what's possible. So make sure you always set follow-ups. Like, hey, can we meet in 2 weeks about it? Can we meet every month, once a month about it? If they keep pushing off your one-on-ones, go to the recording and replay of this and get that statement that was there. But when will you try to start this conversation by? Just building a little accountability for you here.
Actually, I am having a one-on-one tomorrow. So
perfect. Let us know how it goes. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Let us know how it goes. But if anybody who's still here, please send Catherine some courage, some energy. This is really, it is about being courageous and vulnerable, right? It's really vulnerable to say, I want more. And it requires a lot of courage. And I know you got this. But anything else coming up for you before we let you go?
No, I really appreciate the words and the vote of confidence. And I hope, the conversation tomorrow goes really well.
It will. And, something else I want to say is negotiations is often a series of conversations. You have a lot of time before this sounds like it's fully set. So start your negotiation now and keep up. Make sure you're the one that guides the conversation, because no one else is going to do this for yourself but you. So we want you to be a leader and advocate for yourself. Set boundaries where you don't see something going well, like saying, hey, I actually don't want to do that. Who else can do that? I'd like to do more X, right? Or I actually believe I should be in this type of leveling. Here's why. What's possible here, right? Just keep continuing, keep saying where you don't like it. And at some point they might say our hands are tied. That's okay. But as long as you keep advocating for yourself and pushing for what you want and stating it and naming it from the beginning, I like to say it's not a win-lose situation. You're trying to find, like, how can we make this a win-win for the both of us, right? Because if I am thriving with this type of level, this type of role, this is what I'm going to be doing for the company. And you're going to love that. It's going to be such a good return. I'm going to save X time, et cetera. Make sure you're always painting your value. But it sounds like you've got a really great ambition. And I thank you again for bringing this, because some other people said they're going through something super similar. So appreciate you taking up space here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I'll let you guys get on to the program.
Yay. Thank you. Are there any questions, Claire?
There was one more in here. And Catherine, you have a lot of affirmations in the chat. I hope that you're reading them. Thank you everyone for sharing your love with Catherine. We had a question here from Jenny. Jenny, oh my gosh, Jenny, sounds so exciting. Look at this. This is why we work with women of color. Jenny is interested in learning more about the program here, and she wants to pitch funding opportunities like this to your company. We would love to talk to you. I dropped my email in there. So let's schedule a call. Let's schedule a call, Jenny, if you're still here. Let's connect. I think we're connected on LinkedIn already. And then also, Jenny, while you're doing this, you should also apply and get coaching for yourself, because you're creating this amazing opportunity for others as well. So thank you so much for that question.
Thank you, Jenny. We actually had just enrolled 6 people from another company where they sponsored 6 BIPOC women ERG leaders
Yeah.
to join our group coaching program, and just like, here you go. Let them grow as leaders, whatever they want to take their career in. So I appreciate you saying that. And let's see what's possible together.
Yeah, let's explore. This is so exciting.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I don't know if there's any more questions. I didn't see any other.
Anyone want to jump on stage? We're happy to stay a little bit longer. Leave a little space for anyone. Thank you so much for staying, everyone.
Yes, thank you. It is so important to have more mentoring, networking, and support like this for BIPOC women. It's an incredible program, and the folks that we work with it's so magical every single time we coach with them. But thank you for loving our glasses, and I hope we can connect soon. Let's find a time soon. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I know we're quite a lot over, but we've had such a blast, and I hope we can connect with everybody who's joined and anyone catching the replay. Find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Feel free to join our newsletter so that you could have tips, tricks, and other insights from our clients that we love to share, and learnings from the work that we do. And excited to continue staying in community in another capacity together. And thank you, Women in Product.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Women in Product. I'm pointing down below all of our links and the freebies, the negotiation script makeovers, the market research guide, that's all there. And we would love for you to join our newsletter. We send it out once a week, and we drop some gems in that newsletter.
Mm-hmm. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
See you.
We just leave. Bye.